5 o'clock, we'll call the finance meeting to order. Discussion possible motion to review consultant options for assistance with finance director position and approval contracting with outside entity.
Okay, so, we had presented this to you guys at the last meeting, you wanted more information. So I emailed out 2 documents, the first was from, Baker Tilly, that was their actual proposal, and the second was from Larson Allen. On the 3rd page of the Clifton Larson Allen proposal, this is the exact email that, Jamie had sent out, and a summary of some of the things, that we're looking for the consultant to help us with, things that cannot be, easily taken on by our current finance department staff. So I don't know if you guys had a chance to read through this. Okay, I think maybe Jim and Phil, you guys haven't quite yet.
I have not yet.
You have not yet, okay, so
We
just.
didn't know it was there till me, for me. When did we get this back from, just today?
Yep.
I'm through with this, everybody else is, what's next page?
Okay, so Jamie and I met with Baker Tilly on Friday, and then we met with CLA yesterday. Do you wanna recap kind of what each of them said and why the rates are kind of what they are?
Yes, so, you know, Clifton Larson Allen does our audit currently, so.
Accessibility turned off. Tap 3 times with 3 fingers to turn back on.
Something like that. Sorry. So since Clifton Larson Allen does our audit, they're kind of limited on the assistance that they can provide for us. Basically, what they said is that, yeah, you can reach out to us with questions and we can charge you for that, but like, any work that we would do, you guys ultimately have to take responsibility for. Like, we can prepare journal entries, but we'll have to, you know, review them and post them. And they are limited to 120 hours of non-audit services, because of that conflict of interest. So, you know, they couldn't really give us a not to exceed amount because they really weren't sure how much they would be able to do. And then even if they are able to do that, we have to, you know, ultimately take responsibility for it and be able to understand what it is that they're doing to approve it. So the difference with Baker Tilly is that they are not our auditor, so they can basically step in as an interim finance director type position and do a lot of those management type jobs. We had asked Clifton Larson Allen, like, you know, how would you be able to like attend meetings, board meetings and committee meetings? And they said no, because we really have to remain independent. In fact, in appearance, if the appearance of us attending meetings is not that we are independent as your auditors. So Baker Tilly, on the other hand, you know, they might not be able to physically attend. A lot of their work would be done. But this is a different team than what I used to work where I was in the auditing segment, and they have a team that does the day-to-day accounting type things, which is what we kind of need more assistance with. So a lot of it would be done remotely because I believe the person they would have doing it is in Arizona, but they, you know, would be available on site, obviously with travel expenses related, but also, you know, just be available for questions, be able to work remotely. They asked about VPN access, we didn't think that that would be an issue. But that's why, you know, theirs is considerably higher. You know, and this is the not to exceed amount, cause we really have no idea how long, you know, we need somebody to kind of work in this capacity. But basically, everything on that list were things that Baker Tilly would be able to do or assist with.
Feel like we don't really have a choice.
Well, here's a question, just spitballing. Do we have any past finance directors that we know that might wanna step in to fill it for the short term?
That was the question I was going to bring up, because I heard about Rosemary, what's her name?
I wasn't throwing out a specific name, I'm just, you know.
But that, who was before, Kitsy. And I know she's retired, but she did it and is, you know, quite familiar with stuff, I would think. Has anyone reached out to her and see if she'd be willing to?
I have not, no.
Well, and then also there's rehired annuitant issues that would come into play, and then also, is this person a contractor? Cause if they're a contractor, you can't direct their work, is that correct?
That would be bound by the contract.
Right, so those are just considerations.
And that's what you said.
So if you're gonna bring back a former employee, if they have retired under the WRS, then the rehired annuitant problem kicks in, which is something that HR would have to deal with. And then also, if you're bringing them back, they would not be an employee of the county, they would be like a contractor. And there are stipulations around how you can treat a contractor versus an employee in directing their work and.
Even if you work with a contractor on a building project, you can.
You're still directing what you want.
Right, they're gonna communicate with you and you're gonna communicate with them, what you want, yeah.
Well, I just was bringing, because somebody had mentioned to me about, I think Rosemary Schmidt, that's the name
There was another one too, wasn't there?
and it might be a lot cheaper than.
I don't know that Chris would have the experience in, you know, this type of work.
We used to hire.
No, that's what I'm trying to say, is that I don't think she would meet the definition of a contractor, because I think she's not an LLC, unless maybe she is. There are like 7 requirements that you have to meet.
You have to have her back
We
as
have
an
gotten
employee.
in trouble, not in trouble, we have been advised to be careful about this in the past, like, she would have to have an LLC, she would have to have a certificate of insurance and work comp coverage, she would have to have her own equipment that she was performing the work on. As soon as we start giving her her own equipment and things like that, she's an employee.
So if you wanted to go that route, you'd have to hire like a limited term employee back. That's what you would do. You would do a limited term employee, you would not do a contract.
You said there's kind of an issue hiring back somebody that's already been through the WRS system.
That's the rehired annuitant thing, so if someone retired under WRS and they're drawing their pension, there can be implications for that as well.
Maryland used to come back too.
COVID.
Somebody come back under that annuity.
Yep.
You're just limited time-wise. You can't work more than 20 days consecutively. There's some other stipulations in there, but it's not a game killer at all.
No.
Well, that's up to them if they wanna sign it either, there's different options that they have to go through, yeah.
Well, I didn't mean to throw a monkey wrench in it, I was just kinda thinking out loud there. No, I'm thinking, you know. I guess we don't know unless we ask.
Because really, between these two firms, their hourly prices really aren't all that different. If you look at them. Clifton Larson's principles right there.
The only thing that concerned us was that CLA kept telling us things that they couldn't do, because of that audit conflict, like, can't advise the board,
I don't,
things like that.
as as good as they are, they've got a great reputation, but I think they're our auditor, we
We already
won't work.
are gonna have like segregation of duties issues
Oh,
because
yeah.
of our limited staffing, and then this would just
I
kind of.
think it would be
piling on
just a real frustrating thing because the staff in finance would want help with something and say, well, we can't do that.
If we had somebody we could reach out that used to do it though, it might save some of the training on what exactly they gotta do compared to an outside firm. Just to get them up to speed, it might take longer than the ex-employee who's actually done some work.
We don't have anybody in-house that can help with this at all in any way, shape, or form.
We've already delegated what duties we can.
You don't wanna start getting into having people that are just getting by on top of all their other duties and then have to be able to stand up and to audit a year from now. I don't think that'd be a good idea.
Well, okay, so you look at these numbers, and if you went along with this, say you couldn't do John's idea, 110,000, you're looking at 330,000 a year. You better come up with a plan as to how we're gonna fill this position sooner than later, because I haven't heard anything about that. Either we need to hire someone to help us fill this position, because if we're gonna spend this kind of money, might as well hire a company to help us fill the position.
What do you mean by you haven't heard anything? We haven't posted,
Okay, but how long has it been posted?
not even 2 weeks, not even our normal 2-week cycle.
Anything
2,
qualified? Or
maybe
can't you
one,
answer?
maybe one.
That would be my concern, going down this particular path.
But at the same
And
time,
to
I
an
just
open
wanna-
end
I
mic
wanna
up.
throw this out there ahead of time, cause you are on personnel.
What's that?
Even though it costs us a lot of money, I wouldn't just rush into hiring somebody to
No,
hire somebody either.
Yeah, I'm not saying that, I
Yeah.
just wanna have a plan. I don't wanna get into a situation where we have with other positions, in 2 months, 3 months, 4 months.
I think you will be in that same situation, unfortunately. I know I just had an HR call for all the HRs of the western region, and there's one county that's, going on a year now without a finance director.
How are they handling it? Are they doing a contractor too?
No, they have somebody in-house that has some of the qualifications as a CPA and an accountant that's helping them out. They said in March it'll be a year. And they've hired other firms to help them recruit, and it's not
Do you
finding.
know what they've spent so far on?
I don't know, I could reach out for more information, I just found that out on Friday. But I know is there like 3 other finance directors open in the county right now, John, when we looked? Or in the state?
In the state.
In the
through
state right
WCA.
now.
It's everybody's house.
So I don't, unfortunately, I'm not trying to downplay that, but I don't think that hiring a firm will help either, especially the wage we have as well.
What's that?
Especially just with the wage, like I don't know that you're gonna get somebody to move here for that. Like I understand it's the wage we can pay, but I'm not sure that we'll be successful to recruit from other counties to come for that.
They're capped at 110, right?
Right, and this is just a proposal. If you guys wanna cut it to 200 hours and tell us to make do, then that's
Okay, so
your
what I'm
prerogative.
saying is, at 110, if we find someone before that, then we're not obligated to pay that 110. We just
Correct.
pay accordingly to what,
Based
They've
on the
done
hours
for
they bill.
services.
correct. So if, for instance, if there's a project that Tanya can bring 80% of the way, and she just needs help to get it across the finish line at 20%, then your hour, what you get charged is gonna be far less than if there's a project that we need them to 100% do for us.
Correct.
Plus, soon can they
So I think it's, I mentioned the kickoff meeting. And I believe from our call, it seemed like they could be started within the week or two.
So before you,
So what's realistic time if we was to hire a finance director, Ashley? What's the time frame? What kind of a time frame are we looking at if we get the process started for a finance director? What are we talking, 3 weeks, 4 weeks?
Crystal ball.
If we was to get one under the wings and started getting them through the process,
Like, how long does it take from when the applications come through? Like a week or two? Like you're saying, if we have a qualified applicant who we like, I mean, they're gonna have to give probably wherever they are a 30-day notice, maybe a 60. So it depends on how fast, but we got the position posted. If we had a qualified applicant, we would do interviews the next week and then make the offer right after that. So then, again, that same week, so you're talking a week, and then they're gonna have to give a 30 to 60-day notice, so probably talking 2 months. But that's like the best case scenario if you have a qualified applicant that the committee wants to hire right away.
Worst
If-
case
No,
I think that's
case-
best.
best case
best
scenario.
case.
Because let's be honest, it can take us 3 months to find somebody.
I'm being optimistic, don't take me down.
I put new batteries in mine, no problem, so I'm expecting that to stop.
I think we gotta prepare for a case 6 months, 6 to 12 months.
So whatever decision we make should be based on what if we have to go 6 months, 12 months?
So then you're
Oh,
talking
wait,
needing
what?
to reduce budget stuff.
Yeah, one of two things is gonna happen, we're gonna be way over budget on what we thought we were gonna spend on, or we're gonna rush through and just hire anybody, and then we're gonna really,
Well, no, that'll cost us money, more than
Well, it costs
that.
way more.
So,
so whatever we do,
we can't just pick and choose through the cornfield on this one.
We gotta plan, but it could potentially, we'll hope for better than that, but, I'm optimistic, but we should be prepared for worst case scenario.
This 110's for how many months? Actually, 4.
Estimated for at 25 hours. Which, to your point about hiring somebody that used to work here, you might spend a lot less than that. If we end up by needing them for a year. Now, one person compared to a firm has a few more, assets available to them to utilize.
Have any of the reporting requirements or anything like that changed? How long has she been gone? Has that been 6 years, 8 years, 4? I mean, requirements change, so.
Yeah, I mean, like, for sure, ARPA reporting is new.
Opioid,
Yeah.
LACAF.
So, I mean, she'd be starting from ground.
Some of it, yeah, I mean, like, a big part of it is though, is like, just having the knowledge of the county itself, you know, like, the next month, or really, well, the month of March is closing out budgets, you know, doing the budget transfers, and so, if you don't, and everything I did last year is, you know, it's scanned in, there's paper copies in my office too, but if you have an understanding of this government's operations, it's a lot easier.
What if we did both? If we reached out to her, and then we had some direction from these folks at a reduced hour rate, you know?
Or just
Not a
reduce hours.
reduced hourly rate, but a reduced hours, rather than 25, say 15 if we can get a hold of that retired individual. We'd come out ahead that way, but we would have somebody who's a little bit more up to speed on requirements here. Just a thought.
No, it's good.
We contemplate.
Jimmy, don't you think that there might be an issue with having too many people involved in this? Too many changes
Well,
for for the current staff, et cetera?
it does get difficult, like, on knowing who's doing what and making sure that you have a good process there, like, you know, especially with like payroll related things, like, we wanna make sure that, you know, sometimes when you have, you know, like, I use the example of like, when you have a room full of kids and a room full of adults, it's almost harder because you have, everybody else thinks somebody else is watching it, you know, and that's when you have incidents happen. So, you know, just kind of, but having clear guidance of like, this person's handling this, and, you know, I can disregard any emails related to that unless this person's gone. But that's, you know, the processes are gonna have to change regardless. So, you know, my fear with doing a contract with our current auditors is that our audit fees are going to go up and never come back down again, because now they have permission to bill us for any little thing that they could do outside of the scope of where things are at right now. If that makes
Well, if
sense.
we don't do this correctly, our audit fees might go through the roof anyhow, by the time they find all the mistakes 6 months from now. If there is any.
I think the conflict of interest really limits
I
them,
agree.
that there's just no way, because kinda like cherry picking, well, we can't do that because we're your auditors, this and that, and so I don't think that doesn't
Well,
work.
I don't think that's a viable option at all.
And they said, oh, well, we can do the annual financial report, which is the report with the state, cause they said we're actually their only county client that they don't do that for. But most of the work that relates to that is stuff that they can't do. You have to do your
Right.
budget closeouts and all your year-end transfers before you can really prepare that report.
When's that report due?
May 15th.
May 15th. The CT,
No,
Oh.
it's the, C.
well, yeah,
No,
yeah, because you guys
I
are,
don't think I use it. It's the AFR, the annual financial report. This is your township.
right. Well, I think one beginning thing would be to ask the former ones, one or two, if they would be willing to come back, maybe they just say no, and then we're just spinning our wheels, if they don't want to come back and help out.
And how many hours a week would you guys be looking for that? And then are you thinking like step one of the wage scale, or what are you thinking for a wage for that?
What is step one of wage scale for that position?
41.20. And you'd pay them hourly, you would not salary
Right.
them.
And then would they also be expected to take on all of the duties JB has in terms of like personnel? Would they be the full-fledged interim finance director?
Personnel and payroll type stuff.
Like approving vacation requests, if a need for discipline arises, are they handling that? All of the things.
Over the department.
How is
Correct.
that,
Oh, I got you.
how were you anticipating doing that if we were to hire one of these?
They
In the
wanna do
past,
that.
that has generally fallen to me. Like when we didn't have, this board didn't name an interim forest administrator, so that fell to me. To take care of payroll and vacation requests and general personnel matters.
And even if you had like a contractor that you hired, they wouldn't handle
Right.
those,
Yeah,
you know.
anyhow.
That's right, that was my point, I wanted to find out.
Yeah, so it would fall to the default, I would assume what we've
Either
done
one of you
before.
two.
Yeah. I think that would be the question, are you naming that person the interim finance director, or are you just having them come on as,
Right, because there are other things, for instance, we have passed resolutions authorizing the finance director to access certain data, to be able to sign off on certain documents, to pass declarations of
outside, they're not gonna have that.
Correct.
They wouldn't be having that anyhow.
Correct, that's
mean-
my point, that's my point.
You may
Well,
not
the
be able to
difference-
hire a retired person and do that either, because they may say, I'll help you with books, but I'm not gonna get into all the rest of that.
Right.
The difference is, I think Abby's asking if your title will be finance director, so.
Maybe you don't want the title as that. I do think the first thing from an HR standpoint to maybe figure out is how many hours you want them there, because if you're only thinking like 10 hours a week, you don't want them to have that responsibility of oversight of the staff and everything if they're here very infrequently to not know exactly what's going on to the day-to-day. So I think that might be your first point to kind of start at.
Problem is, we don't have a clue if there's anyone even interested, and we don't have a clue if they're interested, how many hours they were willing to put into it. So that's just a hope and a prayer right now.
Well, is that something that this board wants to drive though, or do you want the interested party to drive that? Like, do you wanna set the expectation, or do you want the expectation given to you?
Well, I think that we should request them, if they're interested, to put in, say, 25 hours a week.
Yeah,
Yes.
so the expectation coming from the board is this, are you willing to, can you make that work?
Yes. Yeah, I don't think
But we need to be flexible enough that if they say, no, I can only do 15 or 20, then, you know, we'd have to look at and say, is that enough?
Right,
Keep
right,
things
we
going.
need
To
to,
make it work.
what is enough? We should probably know that going into it before we're asking it.
Right now, we got a full-time person that works probably 50
I
hours.
realize
We're not
that,
doing
I
50
realize
anymore,
that.
But I think that's what we had indicated to Baker Tilly was that our expectation based off of the list we gave them was about 25 hours per week.
Did they think that was realistic?
Yes. And I just wanna clarify, we do not think the finance director position should be a 25-hour per week position. Ashley and I are taking things on outside of our job descriptions. Tanya and Kristen are taking things on outside of their job descriptions. We're trying to be a team here, but just to clarify, this is 100% a full-time job.
So if we could change that posting.
Yeah. Be looking for my stipend.
Back on that. Well, I think, you know, of these two options, I think Baker Tilly is the only feasible one because of the conflict of interest. And unless Jamie goes down and grabs Nick by the collar and say, you get up there, you know, and then reach out to one or two of the former ones and see if they're even interested, because if they're not interested, then we're just spinning our wheels right now.
Which means we should still have this probably on the back burner, or fall back on instead of coming back around. Wait too long, place another meeting, come back around, discuss this, so we kind of probably need to put this in place.
What do you
Well, I
want?
think we can't do anything till we find out if these individuals are willing to
Right, I mean, but if they say no, then you have
plan B.
plan B to fall back on.
But if we made a motion with parameters, that way you can say if that doesn't, otherwise you're calling another meeting, figuring out when we're all
That's what
together.
Kind of going for.
Yeah,
And in the meantime, we lose her.
in the meantime, we don't have
Yeah.
anybody to show them what's going on, yeah.
Right.
So, I guess that's what we should entertain for motion for what you just said, parameters to fall back on. Or at this point of view.
Do we have to sign a contract with Baker Tilly on this?
It's not a contract, but it is like an agreement, yes.
What are the parameters of the agreement?
Right, the professional fee, and they also indicated, so, sorry, I'm gonna bounce around on you for a second here. Understanding of the engagement, so they basically copied and pasted exactly what Jamie had asked for into the agreement that would be signed, so like if you'll notice at the end, it does say attendance at board meetings.
So some of those things that are up there, workers' comp annual audit, when is that done? End of the year?
At the beginning of the year, so those are done for 2024, so.
So if we fill the position, there's possibly a few things up there that we won't need them to do.
Yes. Correct.
It doesn't say anything about a minimum amount of hours that they can work either, right?
Correct, and Rich looked at this and he said, you know, if you're done with them, you're done with them. There's nothing that says you have to pay $110,000 if you sign this.
Yeah, if you do the math on it, their bid is averaging $275 an hour.
Which is
Yeah,
the rate that
400
they
hours.
need would be billed out.
So we really
Yeah,
don't know.
I mean, like looking through this, the annual WRS reporting is done. The MO reporting related to the defeasance of the short-term loan, I will have done before I leave because we're paying that off next week. Workers' compensation annual audit is done. Budget preparation, that will begin in June, so depending on timing. Year-end budget closeouts, I really can't do much with that unless I know there's specific budgets that are closed out. I've been able to, kind of put some stuff together for those. The ARPA reporting, I'm going to try to get done. LATCAP, I'm gonna try to get done. I'm not sure if I'll have everything I need for ARPA. The opioid reporting, what's been due so far is done. The allocation and billing of maintenance time to other county properties is done. Well, the allocation is, I have to bill that out, but I will get that done. The preparation of insurance renewals, that usually happens between September and December, so that's done until September. The departmental grants, that's ongoing. But most of the stuff that ended 12/31/2024 is already reviewed.
So from understanding this, I'm sure the first couple of weeks, their hours would probably be up just getting the basis of our system, et cetera. So it's a smooth transition. I would think after that, this possibly would go down a little bit, and then maybe if they're still on board, they would get busier mid-year. Then the hours might go up. Versus 25 for an average, but I could see maybe 15 to 20 now, and then maybe 30, 35 later on if we
Honestly,
get
the
into the
hours
budget.
probably wouldn't go down that much until October, because, right now, we're working on getting the year end closed out, then we gotta work on audit prep, and the budget closeouts, then we start working on budget, and the actual audit field work is in June. So, July, there's a little bit of a lull after you get the budget sent out to the departments, and they're working on their individual budgets. But otherwise, January through September is, our busiest time.
We should reach out to, some former finance directors. See if they're interested in working 20-25 hours a week. Step one, right? And at the same time, reach out to Baker Tilly. And, well, actually, we wanna wait to see if somebody's interested, cause they're not gonna be able to bear 20 hours. We'll probably need both, and if we get a former finance director, somebody to do it, their hours will just be a lot less. They might only be 5 hours a week or whatever, depending on how much, duties what we're not gonna call a be sitting here for another 3 hours figuring out which duties to give you, which duties to give Ashley, which duties to give them.
So should we call it finance consultant?
Consultant kind of, makes it sound like they're not employed here though.
Yeah,
I would say finance part-time help,
Say that again?
finance part-time help.
And then does an associated job description need to be attached to that so the expectations are clear?
Yeah,
How fast can you work?
well, how fast can you tell me what you all want?
Copy-paste.
So then it's essentially interim finance director.
When you say finance director, it just makes a whole lot of extra stuff, but that's basically what it is, but we just don't wanna.
Do we have to decide that, so to speak, now?
Well, I think that the former finance directors will probably be like, okay, great, what are the
What are we doing?
expectations?
Yeah.
And then we're gonna be like, well, we don't know.
We gotta go back to the board and figure out.
Yeah.
Well, that's a pretty long list.
Yep.
I mean, I'd give them the same expectations we'd give the consultant.
But just general.
And if they say, here's something that, that might take up too much of my time, and a consultant might be more efficient at, we can maybe adjust as we go along, but starting with the list.
Chip off as needed.
Yeah. Or you might forgot to put in a line there, they might suggest like, hey, you better have somebody doing something here. Okay, let's,
Are you throwing that into a motion?
yeah, that's my motion.
Don't have to repeat that.
Kind of got it. Can you put my thoughts into a motion?
should include the compensation too, in that motion.
The compensation being a step one, finance director, salary. At 41, 20.
Okay, I got a motion by Mr. Undershoots with that, long winded verse there. Is there a second? Well, did you put, okay, you got company to fall back on.
So hiring finance part-time help and utility to cover the finance director's job at step 4120 per hour until a director is hired.
No, yeah, there won't be overlap.
So that's saying hiring
Part-time help
Baker
at
Tilly at
that
4120.
Want this?
Yeah, we don't want, until someone's hired either, we don't want overlap. Until,
Well, okay, here, this is the resolution that Rich had told me to get ready just in case, so in here, I wrote duration of the agreement will be at the discretion of the finance committee. So you guys can terminate either when you feel it's time.
Duration, right?
The duration of the agreement or employment will be at the discretion of the finance committee.
we'll have the discretion. I don't know if that.
Discretion.
Oh, of the finance.
So does that address if neither one of them accepts this and then Baker Tilly, then we go with Baker
Yeah,
Tilly?
they could do more, cause we're still, my motion includes entering into an agreement with them as well. Cause, and then you could just, if we get somebody else, we'll have less hours, but if we don't, then we're more hours.
Right.
And if something seems weird that you need to come back to the committee, if they start negotiating, we can throw it, meeting together too. But we need something to get some parameters for starters, I guess.
Put and or in there. I put an and or in there, so
But
finance part-time help at 4120 per hour and or enter into an agreement with Baker Tilly to cover the finance director's job at the discretion of the
then John can negotiate those three things out of the Baker Tilly.
You know, my schedule's this, or I've got vacation planned here, or
Right.
blah, blah, blah.
Authorize board chair.
Copy of it.
At the discretion of the finance committee.
Or, authorize the board chair to enter into contract with, Baker Tilly.
You're gonna put the cost in that resolution then too?
This is now very, very hard to determine a fiscal impact on though. Jamie, how would we even do a fiscal impact on this?
I mean, I guess we would still go up to the 110.
So it'd be like a range of step 1 at 25 hours up to 110? Yeah, for the fiscal impact?
Well, I would think that, you know, even if we just go, if we have the combination, we're not gonna have as many hours for Baker Tilly, so we'd still be able to cover that 100 minutes.
Yep.
That's the idea.
It's 4120 compared to 300 is.
I think there needs to be
If anything,
some
gonna be less.
Right.
dollar amount on it.
But if we put it up to that,
Forever.
we might end up with big, well, no, we might be interested.
Right. Well, I think also the expectation would be that John would go back in and negotiate and say, hey, we don't believe it'll be an average of 25 hours a week, we believe it'll be an average of 15 hours a week. And then I'm sure they will drop their not to exceed, if that makes sense.
Or they say that it will extend out for 6 months rather than 4.
True.
Not to exceed.
Did you see this? Electronic. It is. Says it.
So now you get home and watch this meeting tonight.
What's that, Phil?
If we leave it at not to exceed, it can always come down.
Right. I think there should be a
No,
limit.
but would it be the crime, I mean, being selfish? What
You
about
wanna read that?
going back and watching it later?
So that's not,
Have it in here, please.
but it's like and some okay.
Since hiring a finance part-time help at 41 per hour and or entering into and authorizes hiring board chair to enter an agreement with Baker Tilly for a finance director job. And then somehow I put to in the employment or agreement. There's a lot there that. They just keep adding more. Hiring a finance or part-time help at 41.20 per hour and or entering into an at the chair's discretion, is that?
No, authorize the board chair to enter into agreement with Baker Tilly.
Cause you're doing two, you're hiring somebody and you're entering into an agreement, well, you're either doing one, you're doing both, or one.
I'm not disagreeing with that.
Right, so how do I get that in? So
I just said, so before enter into contract, you're authorizing the board chair to be the one to enter into the contract. And then the length of that contract, or the terms of that contract, are at the discretion of the finance committee.
There's a lot there.
that capture that the chair has the authorization?
Yes, and or the board chair to enter into contract with Baker Tilly. Do you want me to add the word, do you want me to add negotiate? I can do that. To negotiate and enter into contract.
Yes.
It's on the wrong paragraph.
I'll make a motion for the resolution.
Resolution, what is that number? Resolution.
Not until it.
Authorize contracting with finance. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Okay, authorize and.
Motion to adjourn by Mr. Undershoots.
Second.
Second by Mr. Mayor, all in favor, say aye.
Okay, okay.
This is at 6. You're. Don't confuse me.
That's what I want.